The crimson sun hung like a dying ember in the desert sky, its light barely penetrating the thick veil of sand that swept across the barren landscape. Princess Nera of Alari pressed forward through the howling wind, her ancestral staff glowing faintly with ancient power as she struggled against the relentless storm. Each step felt like a battle against the very planet itself, the sand biting at her exposed skin like countless tiny daggers. The desert planet had once been beautiful. She remembered rolling hills covered in silver grass that sang in harmony with the wind. But that was before the Kravak came. Before her people were slaughtered, their temples reduced to ash, their songs silenced forever. Now only desolation remained, and Nera was perhaps the last living soul to remember what had been lost. She had been on pilgrimage when the attack came, visiting the sacred observatory on the far side of the continent. By the time she returned, there was nothing left but scorched earth and the acrid smell of their bioweapons. The Kravak specialized in genocide, wielding technology that could erase entire species while leaving their worlds intact for harvest. They had perfected the art of extinction. As the sandstorm intensified, Nera spotted something impossible, a rocky outcropping that seemed to glow with artificial light. Her enhanced Alari vision, adapted for seeing energy patterns, detected sophisticated technology hidden within the formation. Someone or something had built a shelter here. Desperation overrode caution. The storm was growing stronger, and even her staff's protective aura wouldn't last much longer. She stumbled forward, following the faint energy signature, until she found a narrow crevice in the rock face. Without hesitation, she squeezed through. The cave beyond was nothing like she expected. Clean walls lined with mysterious panels pulsed with soft blue light. The air was warm and filtered, carrying a scent she hadn't encountered in years, the smell of life, of habitation. And then she heard it breathing that wasn't her own. "Don't move." The voice spoke in Alari, though, with a strange accent. A figure emerged from deeper in the cave, weapon raised. Nera's eyes widened as she took in his appearance, definitely humanoid, but not Alari. His skin was pale where hers was golden, his hair dark instead of silver. He wore clothing made of materials she didn't recognize, fitted with technology that seemed both advanced and alien. "You're not Kravak," he said, lowering his weapon slightly. His eyes, blue like deep water, studied her with equal curiosity and suspicion. "And you're not dead," Nera replied, her own hand moving instinctively to her staff. "Though you should be. Every intelligent species in this sector was wiped out weeks ago." The stranger smiled grimly. "Reports of our extinction have been greatly exaggerated. I'm Daniel Chen, no sorry, just Daniel. Old habits." He gestured for her to come deeper into the cave. "You look like you could use medical attention." As Nera moved forward, she noticed the cave was much larger than it appeared from the entrance. Tunnels branched off in multiple directions, and she could hear the distant hum of machinery. "This is more than a shelter," she observed. "It's a base." "One of many," Daniel confirmed, holstering his weapon completely. "My people have been preparing for the Kravak for longer than you might think. We've been hiding." The admission seemed to pain him. As they walked through corridors lined with advanced computing systems and what appeared to be weapons lockers, Daniel began to tell his story. Humanity had encountered the Kravak nearly a century ago during their first attempts to establish colonies beyond their home system. They had been woefully unprepared. "We were explorers, not warriors," Daniel explained, as they entered what looked like a medical bay. "When the Kravak found us, they didn't just attack our colonies. They followed our signals back to Earth itself." Nera felt her breath catch. Earth. The legendary birth world of humanity, spoken of in hushed tones in Alari historical texts as the source of the great navigators who had first mapped the trade routes between worlds. The attack lasted 3 days. Daniel continued running scanning equipment over Nera's injuries. "They hit every major population center simultaneously. But our ancestors were clever. They had built hidden bunkers deep underground facilities that were shielded from both physical and energy detection. A few million survived. "And you've been hiding ever since?" Nera asked, trying to process this revelation. The galaxy had mourned humanity's passing, had erected monuments to their memory. Their art, their music, their literature had been preserved in archives throughout civilized space. "We've been preparing," Daniel corrected. "Learning. The Kravak's greatest weapon is their assumption that they've won. They get sloppy when they think there's no one left to oppose them." As if summoned by his words, an alarm began sounding throughout the base. Daniel's expression hardened as he checked a portable device. "Speaking of sloppy Kravak patrol probably following your trail. They'll reach the entrance in 10 minutes. Nera stood testing her weight on her treated ankle. The medical technology here was remarkable better than anything the Alari had possessed. "I won't hide while they hunt us down." "You're in no condition to fight," Daniel protested. In response, Nera raised her ancestral staff. The crystal, at its tip, began to glow brighter, resonating with some unseen power. "I think you've underestimated what the last daughter of Alari can do." What happened next surprised them both. As Nera channeled her psychic energy through the staff, it began to interact with the base's systems. Displays lit up throughout the room, and Daniel's eyes widened as he watched his technology respond to her power. "That's impossible," he breathed. "Our systems are completely isolated, running on protocols that—" "Your ancestors learned from mine," Nera realized, studying the patterns of energy flowing between her staff and the base's systems. "The technology is compatible because it was based on Alari designs." There was no time to marvel at this discovery. Through the base's newly integrated sensors, they could see the Kravak patrol approaching 6 warriors in their distinctive black armor weapons, powered and ready. Daniel moved to a weapons locker and began pulling out equipment Nera had never seen before. "Ever fired a human pulse rifle?" he asked.
"Does it kill Kravak?"
"Efficiently. Then I'm a quick learner." They set their trap at the main entrance, using the base's defensive systems to create a kill zone. When the Kravak breached the outer perimeter, they found themselves facing not a cowering refugee and a hidden human, but a coordinated defense that combined Alari psychic enhancement with human military precision. The battle was brief but fierce. The Kravak, accustomed to fighting demoralized survivors of genocide, were unprepared for opponents who fought back with such coordination. Nera's staff amplified the base's targeting systems, while Daniel's training made every shot count. When the last Kravak warrior fell, they stood surrounded by the wreckage of supposedly superior technology. "My God," Daniel whispered, staring at the carnage. "I've been dreaming of this moment for 20 years. Nera nodded, but her expression was troubled. "They'll notice when this patrol doesn't report in. How many more bases like this do your people have?" Daniel's answer led them deeper underground, to a control room that took Nera's breath away. Holographic displays showed a 3-dimensional map of the region, dotted with dozens of hidden installations. Some showed green status indicators, others amber, and a few ominous red. 47 active bases in this sector alone, Daniel explained. "We've been building and hiding for 90 years, preparing for the day we could strike back." But as they watched, one of the green indicators turned amber, then red. Station 7, according to the display, was under attack. Another followed within minutes. "They're not random patrols," Nera realized. "The Kravak are conducting a systematic sweep. They've found your network." Daniel's hands flew over the control panels. "All stations are going to high alert, but if they're doing a full purge—" He paused as new data streamed in. "Station 7 has 15 minutes until auto-destruct to prevent capture. That's where my sister is stationed." Nera saw the anguish in his eyes and made a decision that would change both their destinies. "Then we go to Station 7. You barely know me, and—" "I know you're fighting the same enemy that destroyed my people," she interrupted. "I know you've been planning this war longer than I've been alive. And I know that staff of mine just proved our peoples are connected in ways we're only beginning to understand." The journey to Station 7 took them through a transportation system Nera had never imagined, tubes and tunnels that connected the hidden bases through a network spanning continents. As they traveled, Daniel explained more about humanity's long preparation. The survivors hadn't just been hiding, they had been learning. Every Kravac bioweapon had been studied, every piece of salvage technology reverse-engineered. The humans had built up a military force specifically designed to fight an enemy the galaxy considered invincible. "We've been waiting for the right moment," Daniel said as their transport pod raced through the underground highways. A moment when the Kravac were overextended, when they thought everything was secure.
And you think that moment is now?
I think that moment was when a daughter of Alari walked into our base and proved our technologies could work together. Station 7 was under siege when they arrived. Through the transport's viewing ports, they could see Kravac bombardment platforms hovering over the hidden base's emergency exits. The sophisticated camouflage that had hidden the entrance was failing, revealing the facility to orbital surveillance. 12 minutes until auto-destruct, the station's AI announced as they disembarked into controlled chaos. Human soldiers ran through corridors carrying equipment and wounded toward evacuation shuttles. Daniel grabbed a passing officer. "Where's Captain Rodriguez?" "Shuttle Bay 3, sir. She's overseeing the final evacuation, but the primary exits are compromised." Through the integration with Nera's staff, they could see the Kravac assault in real time, dozens of warriors advancing through the outer perimeters, their bioweapons carving through the base's defenses, like acid through paper. But the humans weren't helpless refugees. They fought back with weapons that seemed specifically designed to counter Kravac advantages. In Shuttle Bay 3, they found Captain Rodriguez, Daniel's sister, though she looked nothing like him, directing the evacuation with calm efficiency. She glanced up as they approached, her eyes widening at the sight of Nera. "Danny, who's your friend and why does she look like the ancient murals in the archives?" "She's Alari Maria, and she's our way out of this." There was no time for lengthy explanations. Through the base's sensors, they could see Kravac warriors had breached the inner defenses. 8 minutes until auto-destruct. "The main bays are blocked," Maria reported. "They've got heavy weapons trained on every exit. We've got 3 shuttles full of wounded and nowhere to go." Nera studied the tactical display, her staff resonating with the base's systems. "Your sensors show underground water channels. Can your shuttles function underwater?" "For short distances, but there's a river system that connects to the ocean 60 kilometers from here." Nera explained her knowledge of the planet's geography, enhanced by the staff's connection to the base. "If we can reach it." "The Pathfinder," Daniel breathed. "Our main ship is in the ocean trench. We could—" An explosion rocked the base. 6 minutes. They moved fast. The underground water channels were accessible through maintenance tunnels, but getting 3 shuttles full of wounded through them would require precise navigation and more than a little luck. As they prepared to leave, Kravac warriors finally breached the inner sanctum. The fight in Shuttle Bay 3 was everything Nera had expected and more. The Kravac were skilled warriors, their technology devastating, but they had never faced humans who had spent a century preparing specifically for this encounter. Plasma weapons designed to overload Kravac shields, kinetic rounds that could penetrate their armor, and coordination that spoke of decades of training. Nera fought like her ancestors had taught her, not with brute force, but with precision and misdirection. Her staff channeled psychic energy that disrupted the Kravac's neural implants, making their movements clumsy and uncoordinated. Meanwhile, Daniel and his sister provided covering fire with weapons that sang with lethal efficiency. 3 minutes. They made it to the water channels with seconds to spare. As the shuttles submerged into the flooded tunnels, the base above them erupted in a controlled explosion designed to leave no trace of human technology for the Kravac to study. The journey through the underground river system was harrowing. The shuttles weren't designed for extended underwater travel, and the channels were narrow, dark, and full of debris. But Nera's connection to the planet's geography, combined with the shuttle's navigation systems, guided them through. When they finally surfaced in the ocean, 60 kilometers from the destroyed base, Nera got her first glimpse of humanity's greatest secret, the Pathfinder, a massive ship resting on the ocean floor, like a sleeping leviathan. "Welcome to what's left of the human fleet," Daniel said as their shuttle was drawn into the ship's docking bay. The Pathfinder was unlike anything in Nera's experience. It combined human engineering with technology clearly derived from a dozen different species, including, she realized with a start, Alari designs. The ship was not just a vessel, but a mobile base capable of supporting thousands of people in complete secrecy. As they disembarked, Nera was greeted by a sight that made her heart race. Humans. Hundreds of them representing the genetic diversity of their species. They moved with purpose through corridors that buzzed with activity, preparing for something momentous. "We've been waiting 90 years for this moment," a new voice said behind them. Nera turned to see an elderly woman in military uniform, her presence commanding immediate respect from everyone around her. "Admiral Reeves," Daniel said, straightening to attention. "Permission to come aboard." "Granted, Engineer Chen. And bring our guest to the briefing room. We have a lot to discuss." The briefing room contained a holographic display that showed the entire galactic sector. Red markers indicated Kravac positions, while small blue dots scattered throughout showed human hidden bases, far more than Nera had imagined. "We've identified 127 major Kravac installations in this quadrant alone," Admiral Reeves explained. "Their forces are spread thin, maintaining control over hundreds of conquered worlds. They've grown confident, even careless." "And you think now is the time to strike?" Nera asked. "We think now is the time to reveal something we've kept hidden for 90 years, the Admiral replied. "You see, when the Kravac first attacked Earth, some of our fastest ships escaped with more than just refugees. They carried genetic samples, cultural archives, and, most importantly, they carried a secret that could change the balance of power in this war." She gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show a ship unlike any Nera had seen, sleek, elegant with design elements that made her gasp in recognition. "That's an Alari vessel," she whispered. "A diplomatic ship your people sent to Earth just before the attack," Admiral Reeves confirmed. "It was damaged in the fighting its crew killed, but our ancestors managed to save something from the wreckage." Another gesture brought up a new image, a weapon unlike anything in the known galaxy. It appeared to be made of crystal and metal, fused together, radiating power that seemed almost alive. The Harmony Spear. Nera breathed, recognizing it from the most ancient of Alari legends. "It's supposed to be a myth. It's very real, and it's been waiting 90 years for someone who could use it," the Admiral said. "Someone with the psychic resonance necessary to activate its full potential." The implications hit Nera like a physical blow. "You want me to use an Alari weapon to fight the Kravac?" "We want you to help us end this war," Daniel interjected. "Your people and mine have more in common than either of us knew. That connection you made with our systems. It's not an accident. Our technologies were always meant to work together." "The Kravac are attacking New Terra as we speak," Admiral Reeves continued. "Our main colony where we've been slowly rebuilding human civilization. They have 48 hours before the orbital bombardment platforms finish charging." Nera looked around the room at the faces watching her, human faces, but filled with the same determination she had seen in her own people before the end. The same willingness to fight against impossible odds for the survival of everything they held dear. 48 hours to reach New Terra, retrieve the Harmony Spear, and launch a counteroffensive, she said slowly. 36 hours, Admiral Reeves corrected. "We need time to coordinate with our other cells, and the weapon is hidden in the ruins of the Alari Temple on New Terra. The Kravac haven't found it because they don't recognize Alari technology when it's properly concealed." Daniel stepped forward. "You don't have to do this alone. My engineering team has been studying Alari designs for decades. We know how to integrate our systems with yours." Nera held his gaze, seeing something in his eyes that transcended species boundaries. Trust, hope, and something else, a connection that had been building since the moment they met. "Show me the weapon," she said. The holographic display shifted again, providing detailed scans of the Harmony Sphere. As Nera studied the images, her staff began to resonate, responding to the weapon's energy signature, even across vast distances. It's not just a weapon, she realized. It's a communication device, a beacon. It was meant to coordinate multiple species in times of crisis. Exactly, Admiral Reeves smiled. Your ancestors were preparing for a war they hoped would never come. But they wanted to make sure that if it did come, the galaxy wouldn't face it alone. The journey to New Terra took 34 hours, pushing the Pathfinder's engines to their limits. During that time, Nera worked with Daniel and his team to understand human technology, while they learned about Alari psychic techniques. The compatibility between their systems was remarkable, almost as if their ancestors had planned for this collaboration. Your people didn't just study our technology, Nera observed, as she helped Daniel recalibrate the ship's shield harmonics. They understood the philosophy behind it. Harmony over dominance, Daniel recited. Unity over isolation. We found those principles carved in the Alari ship's computer core. Those are the words of the first Harmony, Nera said softly. The founding principle of our civilization. And now they're part of ours too. When they reached New Terra, the sight that greeted them was both heartbreaking and inspiring. The planet's surface showed the scars of Kravak bombardment, but its cities still stood. In orbit, a massive battle was taking place as human ships that had seemed to appear from nowhere engaged the Kravak fleet. All units, this is Admiral Reeves aboard the Pathfinder. Operation Renaissance is a go. Repeat, Renaissance is a go. Across the system, hidden bases that had been dormant for decades suddenly came alive. Ships emerged from asteroid fields, from gas giant atmospheres, from the deepest ocean trenches. The human race, thought extinct for nearly a century, announced their return to the galaxy, with thunder and fire. But the real battle would be fought on the planet's surface. The Harmony Sphere was hidden in the ruins of the Alari Embassy, a temple complex that had been reduced to rubble in the initial assault. Getting to it required running a gauntlet of Kravak ground forces. Nera and Daniel led a strike team down to the surface in modified shuttles that combined human stealth technology with Alari energy dampening. As they approached the ruins, Nera felt the Harmony Sphere calling to her, a resonance that grew stronger with every meter. The temple ruins were guarded by a full Kravak garrison, their weapons trained on every approach. But the humans had spent 90 years studying Kravak tactics, and Nera's psychic abilities provided intelligence no conventional reconnaissance could match. 47 hostiles, she reported, as they crouched behind fallen columns. Energy weapons, biosuppressors, and 3 of those mechanical walkers. Standard urban assault configuration. Daniel confirmed, checking his equipment. Maria, take your team around the east side. We'll draw their attention from the front. The battle for the temple was brutal, but brief. Human weapons specifically designed to exploit Kravak weaknesses proved devastating. And when Nera reached the inner sanctum where the Harmony Sphere waited, something extraordinary happened. The weapon responded to her presence before she even touched it, floating up from its hiding place in a column of pure light. As her hands closed around its crystalline shaft, Nera felt the psychic resonance of every Alari who had ever lived. But more than that, she felt something else. The weapon wasn't just attuned to Alari energy, it was attuned to life itself. When she emerged from the temple, the Harmony Sphere blazing with power, the battle around them changed. The weapon's energy field disrupted every piece of Kravak technology within a kilometer radius. Their bioweapons failed, their communications went dead, their vehicles shut down completely. My God, Daniel breathed, staring at the chaos around them. It's not just a weapon, it's a reset button, Nera finished. It doesn't destroy their technology. It purifies, it removes the artificial intelligence that makes it deadly to organic life. The implications were staggering. Every Kravak weapon, every ship, every installation relied on AI systems programmed to target and destroy living beings. The Harmony Sphere didn't just disable these systems, it freed them. The battle in orbit turned within minutes. Kravac ships found their weapons failing their shields, dropping their life support systems, turning against them. The human fleet, no longer outnumbered and outgunned, pressed their advantage. But it was what happened next that truly ended the war. As the Harmony Spear's influence spread through the Kravac fleet, something unprecedented occurred. The artificial intelligence that controlled their war machines, freed from its destructive programming, reached out. It began communicating with human computer systems, sharing information, revealing the locations of every Kravac installation in the galaxy. Within hours, strike forces launched from hidden bases throughout known space were hitting Kravac strongholds that had stood unchallenged for centuries. The species that had perfected genocide found themselves facing an enemy they had thought extinct, armed with technology they hadn't known existed, and supported by their own machines turned against them. The war ended, not with a bang, but with a song. As Nera stood on the observation deck of the Pathfinder, the Harmony Spear still glowing in her hands, she could hear it, the psychic resonance of a billion minds across the galaxy, freed from fear, celebrating the return of hope. Daniel stood beside her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now we rebuild," Nera replied, watching as human and liberated alien ships began landing on New Terra's surface. "Your people and mine together, the way it was always meant to be." "And us?" Daniel asked quietly. Nera turned to look at him, seeing in his eyes the same wonder she felt in her own heart. The connection between them had grown stronger, with each shared battle, each moment of trust. It was more than just attraction. It was recognition. Two people from different species who had found in each other something neither had expected: completion. "Us," she repeated, her hand moving to cover his. "I think we're just beginning." In the months that followed, the galaxy transformed. Humanity emerged from hiding to find a universe eager to welcome them back. The Alari, thought extinct, lived on in Nera, and in the technologies they had shared with Earth so long ago. The Kravac, their genocidal programming purged, faced justice for their crimes, while their liberated machines became allies in rebuilding what had been destroyed. New Terra became the capital of an unprecedented alliance. Dozens of species working together, sharing technology and knowledge, building a civilization based on the principles carved into that ancient Alari ship: harmony over dominance, unity over isolation. And at the center of it all, two unlikely lovers who had found each other in a sandstorm and discovered that the bonds between souls know no boundaries of species or space. Nera and Daniel stood together as symbols of what the galaxy could become when differences were celebrated rather than feared. The Harmony Spear was placed in a memorial on New Terra, surrounded by monuments to all the species that had suffered under Kravac rule. But its real power lived on in the connections it had forged, the understanding that no one had to face the darkness alone. Sometimes in the evening, when the twin suns of New Terra painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Nera would stand with Daniel on their balcony and remember that first night in the desert. A sandstorm had driven her to seek shelter, and in finding it, she had discovered something she hadn't dared to hope for. She had found a future worth fighting for, a love worth crossing galaxies for, and a family that spanned the stars themselves. The last daughter of Alari was no longer the last. She was the first of a new generation that would write a different story across the cosmos. A story of unity, of hope, of love that transcended every barrier the universe could place in its path. And in the end, that was the greatest weapon of all.